Well, here we are again today to solve some of life's next chapter.
Yes.
I'm Cheryl Keamy. I'm Executive Director with Neighbors Who Care, and I have with me...
I'm Lydia Wietzma with Next Home Elite Realty.
And today we are so excited to have Charlotte Hughes, who is a volunteer with Neighbors Who Care. One of the reasons we do this podcast is we want to bring attention to the fact that Neighbors Who Care operates 100% because of the kindness of volunteers. So we think if we talk about the volunteers a little bit, maybe the community will say, hey, that's just like me. I might want to do that too.
I want to volunteer.
Absolutely.
So Charlotte, tell us a little bit about you. Where did you live before you came to Sun Lakes?
I moved here from Florida.
Oh.
My husband and I both had careers in government, were our last jobs, and we retired to Florida and lived there for 22 years or so. And then we decided to come here because our sons are here.
Oh, okay.
And
that's nice.
We had lived in Phoenix before in the 70s and early 80s, and we have friends here. So it was
an easy
partially
move.
a coming home. Exactly.
Where in Florida did you live?
We lived in St. Petersburg.
Oh,
Okay.
love it there.
Nice.
It's a
Yes.
beautiful place.
It
I have
is
a
a
really
beautiful
good friend that
place.
lives there, and I visit as often as I can.
Yes.
Great, but it's beautiful here too. Just
It
a different
is.
kind of
It
beauty.
Yes, it is.
beautiful.
Absolutely. So when did you move to Sun Lakes?
About 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you still working, or you were retired in
I
Florida
was
too?
retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do for the government?
My last government job was with Fairfax County.
Okay.
And I worked in the Office for Children, managing the affordability of daycare problem.
Oh, boy.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is a
That's a
problem,
whole
isn't
nother
it?
subject.
It's a
It's just
whole
like the
nother
affordability
subject,
of
yeah.
managing older
seniors.
people.
Yeah.
We're dealing with it.
We're dealing
all
with
our
it
lives,
with the seniors
right?
too, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, how long have you been volunteering for us? I think it's just been a short time.
Has
huh?
it been a short time? It's been about 7 months.
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Have you been a volunteer in other stages of your life?
Yes, I have. I volunteered for the election office
Okay.
in Florida.
Okay.
And over time, I had volunteered at 2 different hospitals.
Okay. Just helping people find their way in the
Yes,
hospital.
yes.
Hospitals are interesting. There's a lot of our volunteers who either volunteered at the hospital and then decided to do us,
Yes.
or
Go to you first and then go to the
exactly.
hospital because they see
Hospital.
such a
Yeah.
need.
It is such a
probably.
need, and they
Yeah.
have hundreds of them. That's
Yes.
a lot.
Yes.
So we do too, but
Right.
they have a more different. It's an interesting program. But anyway, so we're happy that you decided to reach out. Do you have a heart for seniors, or was it just a good idea?
It was really both.
Okay.
It was both. Both my parents are gone, but my mother had Alzheimer's and was in a retirement facility for the last 5 years of her life. And I know how hard it was for my dad
Yeah.
to manage that.
Sure.
And I just have always given of myself in whatever ways I can. So when we first moved here, I saw an information piece, probably in a newspaper somewhere, about Neighbors
It
Who
works
Care.
when I write about
It
this.
does.
Yes, it does. It
I need
does.
volunteers.
Yes, exactly.
And the people will come.
That's right. And I thought that's something I'm going to look into. So it took me a while to do it. But
Okay,
I'm
sure.
absolutely glad that I did.
And what kind of activities? We have about 12 or 13 different things we do.
Right.
What do you like to do?
Well, what I'm doing now is transportation.
Okay, our greatest
And
need.
Transportation is a
It's a biggie.
challenging.
Yes, it's a biggie. And I can identify with that because my father had to give up driving.
Oh, yeah.
And even though he financially could call an Uber or something, it was never the same.
Right.
It was never the same. So I can see, and I've had experience with the folks that I've transported,
Sure.
that it's an isolating experience, and you feel they have to feel reliant on somebody
Absolutely.
else
Yeah.
to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because it's at our orientations, my desk is right outside from where they do the orientation, so I hear most of it. And almost without a doubt, there's someone in the group, whether it's 2 people or 10, that asks the question about liability. Was that a concern for you whenever you stepped forward, or did you think about that?
Well, I read about it in the materials, of course, but the fact is, I'm not afraid of it very much, and I'm pretty optimistic about how things are going to go. So
I like it. I'm optimistic
and your
too.
transportation probably isn't too far away.
No.
There are some long haul, like folks who have to see a specific specialist, maybe
Okay.
in North Phoenix, but a lot of it is right in our
local.
community.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've only done pretty local kinds of things. I considered one that was posted last week, I think it was, going to the Mayo Clinic.
Oh, yes, that's one of them too.
And I thought,
Yeah, that's a haul.
It's
Yeah.
maybe not.
Right, I understand. And there's a few drivers that, whenever they onboard, they say, I'm happy to drive anywhere,
Right.
you know. So we have enough of them, I
Right.
think, to do that. But it is an issue whenever someone has to. We do limit some things, so this is a good time to talk about it, because folks who need physical therapy or dental, sometimes they may have to go 3 or 4 visits for just one procedure,
Right.
or like a physical therapy is 2 or 3 times a week. So we do limit how many times we can take someone to the doctor.
That's good to know.
Or a medical appointment. And we also limit those 2 services to the Sun Lakes area.
Gotcha.
Because there's
Yep.
plenty of dentists and
In that
physical
area,
therapy
yes.
outfits that
Nearby,
are close
yes.
by.
Yeah.
And that does, people get disappointed, but we have got to maintain our sustainability, and so
Right.
that's one way that we do
Right.
it. Yeah.
And you don't want to burn out your volunteers either,
Right.
because they're the
True.
ones that are taking the time out of their day to do
Right.
this for you. So,
So when it comes to the liability, naturally, people are going to be concerned.
Right.
We do share a lot of information, and we do require that you show us your declaration page of your insurance. And all that does is tell us that this person is insurable.
Right.
Right? So our insurance then will cover that
Right.
situation. But we want to make sure that the person is, in a good spot
Is
as far
covered,
as they
yes.
didn't
That
have
makes sense.
a lot of wrecks in the last year or
Right,
something.
right.
Yeah. So, but we
probably no tickets.
what I
you know.
usually share about that is when someone asks that question is if your neighbor came across the street and said, hey, my car won't start and I need to
you drop
be
me off?
in Chandler,
Yeah.
in a half an hour. Would you take them? Of course you would.
Yes.
And you wouldn't ask for their,
Anything. Right.
liability or
Right.
anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So that's what we really try to say is we do have insurance. We got you. We have your back. But you wouldn't say that to
Right.
a neighbor. And
Right.
that's why we call ourselves Neighbors Who Care, because typically that's who we're taking is someone right in our own
Right.
community. So so whenever you take folks, do you have conversations in the car?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You make a lot of friends, huh?
Yes, and people from varied backgrounds and current interests, and they don't usually talk about their medical situation.
Right.
But
Sure.
I've learned, a few things about eye doctors and
yeah, you pick up a little.
therapists. Yeah. And I see who people go to more often. So I think, maybe that would be a good one for me
they're
to
a good
try
one.
someday.
Absolutely. Yes, very good.
Put them on your list.
Have you thought about any of the other services that we do?
Yes.
About doing some of those?
Yes. I'd like to know a little bit more about like the friendly visiting
Okay.
that people do, because
Sure.
that's something I would be comfortable with.
I was talking in our last segment that transportation naturally is the biggest need.
Right.
But we're seeing a growing need for respite.
Yeah.
And as an agency and me as a leader, I am so I have such a heart for isolation.
Yes.
I really want to see that change. So we've started to do some events for our clients to get them together outside of just shopping, because that was really
Right.
the only thing that we did was socialize them that way. But we really like doing that, and we like being able to let people know that when they're taking care of somebody and they can't get out of the house, that we offer that respite care. And there's not a lot of, there's really not much to be afraid of, but people are afraid of it.
Really?
They're
Okay.
feel uncomfortable about going into someone's house that they haven't really known them,
yeah.
and they don't know that person's condition.
Right,
They're like, okay,
right.
this person can't be left alone. What's the story?
What's the problem?
We do
Yeah.
try and collect as much information as possible.
Right.
And then we let the volunteer know this is what the person's living with as far as their
Right.
condition. And they're not expected to do anything for them.
Right.
They'll take them to the bathroom or anything.
Right.
Just visit.
Right.
And so yesterday I was talking with a lady who went and did a respite. And she was there for 2 hours, and she asked the guy what he liked to do. And he said, I like puzzles. She says, I put a puzzle together for 2 hours. She says, and I didn't want to leave. I was enjoying it afterwards. So friendly visits is a similar thing. It's not as long of a visit,
Right.
but it's just someone who lives alone.
To check in on them.
Check in on them, maybe visit with them for 15 minutes or so. And then there's also calling. We have reassurance calling. So someone who is especially old and does not get out of the house at all,
Right.
they may want to call every day.
Right.
And so sometimes there are folks who are willing to, at 8 o'clock every morning, call this person and just say good morning, and they don't necessarily
Yeah.
talk for very long.
Yeah.
And those can be done. We have volunteers in other states who do that.
Oh,
you
that's
know?
great.
From their other-
Right. They lived here and they wanted to still do
Yeah.
something for us. So,
that's
and
great.
now I see there are businesses popping up where people can pay someone to do that call.
Right.
So I'm so proud that we're doing it,
That you
with the
started-
volunteers
Yeah.
for nothing. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're thrilled that you're able to come and share your
Yeah.
experience today, Charlotte.
Have you met anybody in your traveling them that like stuck out in your mind that was like had an interesting story either to or
client.
from?
A client. Two people come to mind. One was a woman who retired from New York. She was living in a casita with
Okay.
a friend, and she said that she was a tutor and a trainer for people performing on Broadway. And,
Wow.
and music and so
Oh my
on
gosh,
and so
that's so
on.
interesting.
Yeah, it was
Very
We had a very
interesting.
interesting conversation. And then the other person that comes to mind was a gentleman that he was a big, tall fellow. And we go to this, and he's telling about his wife is now in a retirement home and so on and so on. And then as we get back to his home, on the way out the door, he said, "Oh, and by the way, I was an NFL football player." I don't know if that was accurate or not, but
He was big enough that he could have been.
He could have
Oh
been.
my
So,
gosh.
I think we have a
It's
lot
funny.
of. I think we do have a lot of retirees because there's a lot up by my
yeah.
house too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
One time I was talking to a volunteer and she said, I drove someone the other day who was the pork king of Hawaii. I was like,
Pork
well,
king?
how about that? He was had a
pork
big
business.
pig and hog business in Hawaii of all places. And I guess he was,
I would think that would be very popular.
everyone knew
in
who he
Hawaii.
was
Yeah.
in Hawaii, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
He supplied them all.
Yes.
All the luau's. And
that's right.
everything.
That's right.
There's a lot
That's
of that
right.
there,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank
Charlotte.
you.
And
Pleased
thank
to
you
be
for
here.
volunteering for Neighbors Who
Yes.
Care.
You're entirely welcome.
We just couldn't do it without you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will see you again on our next episode of Solving Life's Next Chapter.
Yeah.
Thank
right.
you.